The all-new Nissan Ariya is a fully loaded EV. It's brimming with style and power.
Up to 389 horses of it.
Innovation and intelligence.
E-Force all-wheel drive.
It'll pin you to your seat.
Your very plush seat.
The all-new, all-electric Nissan Ariya. Nissan Ariya with E-Force expected availability early 2023. E-Force cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. E-Force and 389 horsepower available on Platinum Plus. Nissan calculation using 1-foot rollout testing with long-range battery and E-Force only in sport mode with E-Step off. These results are for comparison only and should not be attempted on public roads. Drive responsibly. See nissanusa.com for details.
Surgeons keep our hearts beating. They do the amazing. Help save lives. And so can you. Your CSL plasma donation can help create 24 critical life-saving medicines that can give Grandpa the chance for his heart to swell when he meets his new grandson, or give a bride the chance for her heart to skip a beat on her wedding day. Every plasma donation helps more than you know. Do the amazing. Help save lives. Donate today at your local CSL Plasma Center and be rewarded for your generosity.
Hey everyone, welcome to the From the Shadows podcast. I'm your host, Shane Grove. I just want to give a quick update on the super producer, Jason. We've gotten a lot of messages and emails about how he's doing, and he's still having some trouble. He's still in the hospital. He's really appreciative of all the well wishes and the prayers. And, you know, we just keep him in your thoughts and prayers. He still has a long road ahead of him. And he's a fighter, you know, he's a tough dude. So just keep thinking about him. And hopefully Jason will be back on hanging out with us sooner than later. So with that being said, I just want to remind everybody that if you want to find us, you want to send us a message, you can go to Facebook at From the Shadows Podcast. Send us a message. You can find us on our forum page, After the Shadows, on Facebook. You can find me at Shane Grove Author on Instagram, or our From the Shadows Podcast Instagram page. Send us a direct message, or the good old-fashioned way, just go to our website, hit the contact page, and send me an email. We get stuff all the time from people sharing their experiences and stuff, and we'd love to hear from anybody out there that has an experience they'd like to share. And if you want, we can get you on the show, and you can share with all of our listeners. And another thing, I'm reminded that we do have a Patreon page with some extra content that goes up every month, and you can also get our regular shows commercial free, and most of the time early. It just depends on what our second super producer, Phil, has going on. He's got some movie stuff going on right now, so he's sometimes he gets a little behind getting the podcast episodes up, but that's okay. You know, we're all busy. We're all doing our best. So with that being said, I'm super excited about this guest because he comes highly recommended by one of my favorite Bigfoot people in the whole wide world, Amy Boo. She said that this guy is one of her favorite eyewitnesses and that we needed to talk to him. So we are welcoming Casey. Casey, welcome to the From the Shadows podcast.
Thank you and your listeners for having me on.
Yes, we're super excited to, I know we talked a little bit. I wouldn't let you tell me too much because I really wanted to be kind of surprised by some of the stuff you had to tell. So let's just get into it because I haven't heard it. So I'm excited to hear about your experience. So kind of tell us where you're located and start with like the first experience you had, and let's hear what happened.
A little bit of background information for me. I am 32 years old now. I am from southwestern Pennsylvania. I've been an avid outdoorsman my entire life. My family is at a remote cabin in either Piper Pottersdale area of central Pennsylvania. My cabin's set in the elk range, Pennsylvania elk herd. I've been going up there ever since I could walk, running them run in the woods with the family. I started hunting whenever I was 12, and that's actually how the first sighting happened. I was 21 at the time. It was right around December 1st of 2013. It was the second day of deer season, and me and my family were up at the cabin for the first week of rifle season. Second day was a Tuesday that year, and a lot of people leave usually after the Monday opener was happening. So the woods were really quiet that day. And I got up before sunup, and I was at the pine thicket, which is about 200 yards down the hollow from where my camp sat. And it's a big brand new pine grove. So it's all fresh pine forest that covers the entire valley side from one mountainside to the other. So maybe 100 to 150 yards wide at its widest point, but it goes almost a quarter mile down the valley before it opens back up into hardwoods again. So I still hunted through the pine thicket, thinking I might kick something out of there and get a shot at it. And I got to the other side a couple hours after daylight was up. And just as I got to the other end, where I was standing in about chest-high pine tree, I noticed two doe in front of me, and they were feeding up the hollow. The wind was in my face, so I had perfect position to stand there and watch, because at that point in time, you could only shoot buck first week of rifle season. It wasn't until Saturday you could shoot doe. So I stood there for probably 10 to 15 minutes watching these doe as they fed up the hollow to me. And the way I was standing looking east down the hollow. The hollow runs west to east, down over the top of the mountain. So I was standing facing east, and the deer fed off to the north slope of me at right around 40 yards. They come in real close. And I was hoping the buck was trailing one of those doe. Well, after the deer left my sight, I waited maybe a minute or two to see if there was something come up the hollow. And I took a step, and when I took the first step, I got the sense that something wasn't right. So I started scanning my surroundings, and on the south slope, so the opposite slope the deer went, on the very top of the mountain ridge where it plateaus off at the mountaintop, there was a great big oak tree. And sitting at the base of this oak tree was this big black object. And at the time, I thought it was the biggest black bear I ever seen in my life. So just to confirm that it was a black bear, I pulled the gun up and I was looking at it. And the distance from me to the creature was probably about 140 yards. But it was open hardwood. I could see clearly for 140 yards, 200 yards even for it, so another 60 yards past from where I saw it on the edge. It was right on the edge of the mountain thicket, the mountain laurel thicket that rims the edge of that mountaintop. And when I pulled the gun up, I noticed that this thing didn't have a muzzle, and instead of a paw wrapped around the tree so it could lean over, it looked like a hand. That's when I was like, wait a second. All I know that's supposed to be that big, jet black in this area is supposed to be bear. So I lowered the gun. I cranked the scope power from 3 power to probably about 8 or 9 power. I maxed the scope out, brought the gun back up, and that's when I got the clear visual of this thing's face and the details that I was able to get out of this first encounter. I'll start off with the thing was absolutely massive. When it was crouched down, it was on its haunches, like it was getting ready to do a squat, with one hand on the side of the tree, and it was peeking around the tree trunk, looking down the mountainside at it. The face was very flat. The nose was flat itself. The way I describe it best is, remember Kimbo Slice back when he started with WEC?
Yes, I do remember Kimbo Slice. Yeah. Like, yes, I remember exactly what. I mean, I got to be honest, Kimbo Slice out there would be scary just by himself. You know what I'm saying? Let alone.
This thing dwarfed Kimbo. But the comparison I make there is the nose. You know how Kimbo's nose was really flat from being broken so many times?
Yeah. Yep.
The nose was very bulbous at the bottom with very thin slits for nostrils because of how flat the nose was. The lips were very thin with almost like a chimpanzee ape look. They were very thin, very flat. And you could see the skin and the skin tone that was around the lips. It was actually a very dark brownish gray, almost like, and the comparison I use there is, you know how a work glove left outside used in oil, it gets that real brown sheen, almost like a fine polish to it. That would be how I would describe the skin around the lip and actually over across the body that I could see. It looked like worn old leather.
So what are you thinking as you're seeing this? I mean, you know it's not a bear. I mean, do you have the concept that there might be a Bigfoot out there in the woods where you're hunting?
I mean, I've heard the old wives' tales of, you know, there's something else out there. I watched the Patterson, so like I was aware of Bigfoot, and I was a huge skeptic before that. And I even said up until that point in time, you give this hick from the sticks a chance to pull the trigger, and I'd be bringing it in and putting it on a slab for science to test on. I'd be getting rich.
So what changed your opinion at that moment? At that moment that you're sitting there looking at this thing.
Well, like you said, I started going through. Okay, I'm very analytical, so I started going through. Okay, no muzzle. This thing's not a bear. This thing is definitely not a person in a suit because I am seeing muscle definition. I am seeing muscle movement whenever it makes facial expressions, because it actually made a facial expression whenever I do believe it realized that I was pointing a gun at it. Because it went from like just looking down over the hill like, oh, what are you doing here? What are you going to do? To the mouth dropped open a little bit, so the lips parted. I could see just very vaguely the top of the flat teeth on the front end of the mouth. And the eyes widened, the nostrils flared, and it was that, oh shit, I'm in trouble look. Like, I definitely should not be here right now. This is not a good situation for me. You could see the emotional intelligence as this thing was working through the encounter as I was.
So it said, oh crap, but it didn't make any noise, or it didn't make any attempt to.
No noise, and it stayed in that squatted down, like I said, in a squat position looking around that tree. But you could tell it was no longer the calm, cool demeanor that it had when I first started looking at it in the first like 10, 15 seconds. It now had this terrified look of, how am I going to get out of this? What's my exit plan?
So how did it get out of it then? I mean, other than the fact that you had second thoughts, you know what I'm saying? I mean, how did this encounter end?
Well, it was that intellect, that emotional intellect of it processed the situation the same way I was processing the situation. And I could tell it didn't like it any more than that I did. And instead of turning the safety off and starting letting loose, I just watched it. I kept the gun raised. I kept in a straight, ready firing position. But the gun stayed on safe, and all I did was I observed.
So at no time did you, I mean, having not been in that situation, did it ever occur to you that, okay, if there's one, there may be another somewhere, and where's the other one at? At
that time, no. I was focused on what I could see visually in my sight. I was so focused on getting details because I wanted to remember details because, like I said, later on I started going through and researching actual Bigfoot reports from eyewitness sightings. seeing to see if I could get any similar comparisons from other individuals from other witness sites.
Well, okay, so you said the thing was massive. What did you estimate its size to actually be?
I would put the shoulders at 48 inches from shoulder tip to shoulder tip.
Good grief.
I would put the chest area like well into the 120, 130 inch. The mountain from the Game of Thrones, it was his chest, and it was just much more defined. Like, you could see the pec muscles underneath the hair, underneath the skin. Like, whenever it would move, you could see the individual muscle masses as they turned to do what they needed to do to move this body. The waist was probably 42 to 44 inches. I mean, this thing, take the biggest, most athletic person that you can think of and just put them at 8 foot tall and roughly like 700 pounds.
Well, I got to be honest. I can't even imagine. Can't imagine that, because I always go back to like how big. I don't believe they're very truthful when they tell you how big NBA guys are. Okay, they always said that Shaq was like 7'2" and 290. Well, I have to tell you, Shaq was probably every bit of 375 or 400. You know what I'm saying? Like, I truly believe he was that big, and they just don't want to tell you how big they actually are because it would scare normal people. So even thinking that and how massive Shaq is.
Or the big show, WWE, he was supposed to be 7 foot tall and 500 pounds.
Yeah. So as big as that is, can you imagine another foot and 300 pounds?
Oh,
you know, so that's what you feel like you were seeing out there, you know? That's just a crazy size for something that's walking on 2 feet. You know, that's like a steer. That's like a year-old steer at the farm, basically. You know, but to imagine that on 2 feet is mind-blowing.
The way the encounter ended is it actually made the first move. I stood there and I just took as much detail as I could in, but then it decided, okay, I'm done with this circus, and it stood up. And when it stood up, it did it exactly like a squatter would do finishing a squat. It come straight up, parallel with the tree trunk, didn't use its hands, it just used its leg muscles, and it just popped straight up, and it turned. And when it turned, it led with its hips instead of its upper body, because the upper body was more rigid than the legs were. So it actually, when it turned with its hip, it moved its shoulder as well in the exact same motion, turned its back on me. 2 steps, it made maybe 15 feet and disappeared into the mountain laurel right next to it.
It never made a audible sound.
I never heard anything, and I sat down, I smoked a cigarette, I tried to think of go through it, could anybody be pranking me? No, this thing was way too big, it was way too real to be a suit. And then I was like, you know what? There was a branch that come off that oak tree, and when it stood up, it almost touched that branch with the tip of the cone of the head. And I decided I was going to go up there and stand exactly where this thing was and actually get a grasp of how big it was. And 30-06 in one hand, 357 Magnum in the other, I went up over that hill, and I slowly just peeked over the mountaintop towards the mountain laurel, seeing that it was gone, and I went over to the tree, and I stood exactly where it was. And I'll tell you, that branch was, if not the 8 foot mark, it was above it, probably to 8'3", 8'4". So it was somewhere in that range, height-wise.
Wow. So it kind of sounds to me like, now how long did you really stand there and get this really good look at it? Like, How long did this actually happen?
30 seconds to a minute. It was under a minute, but I would say probably close to the 30-second mark.
Okay. So apparently the creature probably thought, okay, number one, if he wanted to shoot me, he'd have already done it. And number two, maybe I better get out of here before you changed your mind. I mean, but do you think seeing what you saw, like, do you think you had what it took to kill it?
Well, I know that answer because I made that decision right then and there to let it walk. It was, I don't know what came over me, but it was too human. That emotional and intellectual intelligence is beyond ape. Because yes, they can do problems. Yes, they can paint pictures and put squares in square holes. But it was how it reacted first to realizing that I had the gun, and then its decision to just disengage from the situation. It made conscious decision, and that stopped me from pulling the trigger.
So how long did and let's be honest, who'd be out there pranking you, knowing that you have a gun? And if somebody knew you, you have already stated plainly that I'm sure you told your buddies if you saw one, you're shooting it. So, were they putting you to the test? You know what I'm saying? Like, we're going to see if you really will shoot us. Like, that's the dumbest thing ever.
And I mean, it's even stupider when it's the second day of Pennsylvania firearm season and there's 750,000 firearm hunters in the state.
Yeah, exactly. Now let's preface that with there are some really stupid people, So it's not beyond the realm of possibility. I just, look, if you
to win that stupid of a prize, I mean, that is
exactly. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking if you're hanging out with guys like that, then hey.
Yeah, I don't want you around when it comes to firearms.
Holy sweet. So you leave the woods, obviously a changed person. What happens, what happens next? I mean, do you go back and tell some people? Do you keep it to yourself, or, what happens?
I kept that first encounter to myself for years. About 2 years. I mean, when people would bring up Bigfoot, I'd bring it up a little bit differently instead of more of, oh yeah, if it's there, let me see it, I'll shoot it. It was more of, well, what would you think? Or what do you think Bigfoot would? It started to become questions instead of the sarcastic banter that it used to be. It wasn't until 2015 when I picked my uncle up from working. His shift ended at midnight. The guy that relieved him was a good friend of mine. So I would always sit with my uncle and my buddy, and we would talk for an hour after my uncle would get off work. And it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. It was January, maybe early February of 2015. There was 6 inches of snow on the ground. It was a full moon, beautiful cloudless moonlit night, and it was snowing a little bit to put a little bit more on top of what was already on the road. So I was paying attention to the road, and my uncle was telling me some story I've heard 1,000 times that he's told me before, and all of a sudden I just hear him exclaim, "What the hell is that?" So on a old historic 2-lane highway, I locked the wheels up because there was nobody behind me. I'm thinking there's a deer going to come out in front of me. And I look over into the passenger seat, and he's pointing out the passenger window at a hillside behind an RV sales place, like a car dealership. And on this hillside is a couple scattered pine trees that are maybe 5 to 6 feet tall. And this thing is all black, And this one I actually compare to the Big Show. It was all one uniform black. It was going on two legs, and it was walking straight up a steep incline that would probably have most people slipping and sliding back down. And that's when it really took a hold of, these things are real. I've now seen two of them, and I got somebody else that can say they saw the second.
Yeah, because the way you describe it, he saw it first, right?
Yeah, he saw it out the passenger window first.
Now, how close or in relationship to the first sighting was this one?
Probably about 100 miles.
100 mile. Okay, so this is an area that, I mean, it sounds like from some of what you told me earlier and stuff, this is a pretty wooded, rural area anyway that you guys are.
This spot I'll be more than happy to give out to people because it's not so localized to where my cabin is. It was on Old Route 66, and it was just above town of Delmont. It was just before KT Grant. It's a industrial slag removers for the steel mills.
Okay, so some people, anybody from Pennsylvania listening, can go check out that spot then and kind of almost reenact your sighting.
Yeah.
And see from so what did he say then once he saw, like, how did that conversation go? Did you get out and check anything out, or did you just drive on?
I was gonna pull over, and he started flipping out that we didn't have a big enough gun in the vehicle to take care of whatever that thing was if it decided it didn't like us snooping around.
Really?
Yeah.
So you get out of there. How did that? Did you finally fess up to him then that you'd already had a sighting?
It was a couple weeks later because he would not get. He goes, "What did we see?" I was like, "Well, you tell me what you saw." I was making him tell me exactly what he saw and then eliminate the possibility from there. And he did not want to get to the Bigfoot. He goes, "No, Bigfoot ain't real." And then that's when a couple weeks later I finally said, you do realize that's the second one I've seen. I told him the first story.
So how good a look? So you didn't get as good a look as he did then, really, right?
It was probably at a distance of 80 yards. It was on, like I said, it was on a snow-covered slope with a beautiful cloudless full moon night. So you know how you can see on those nights.
Oh, yeah.
Where you have some detail, you can tell exactly what's moving, but you're not going to get any more detail than the form itself to make out, okay, that's a deer, that's a bear, that's a person.
Well, was there anything that reminded you of your first sighting? Like the shape of it? Like, because a lot of times, we get stories and the head's a little bit different, or the face is different, or they, there's different things that vary. So how was there anything that stood out about this one that you're like, oh yeah, that's exactly like, or was it just the mass that
this
kind of?
This smaller, I would probably put it in the 6.5 to 7 foot range. It was nowhere near as wide, so I'd probably say it was around the 500 to 600 pound mark. But all I got was a uniform jet black figure on that white backdrop. And it was the locomotion that got me. The way it picked its legs up to move its feet, and the way the arms were moving when it was going up the hill. It was identical to the first one I've seen.
So was there any point where you guys said, well, there's a possibility that could be a guy? It could be a big guy dressed all in black out walking.
How many people do you know that are 6.5 foot plus and over their 400 plus pound mark? Like pushing the 500, easy.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm just saying, was there any point where you guys even entertained that maybe it's somebody out here?
There was no break. Like, if somebody's in a ski suit, you can tell the difference between the jacket and the bibs because the jacket's over top of the bibs and you have that little bit of overlap. This was one uniform shape.
And I mean, what gets me is when people describe how they traverse stretches of countryside, so to speak, where, like you said, most people walking up a hill in that kind of snow would never make, they wouldn't just walk normal. They would be slipping, sliding, falling over, trying to catch themselves kind of deal, So it seems to me that that probably also played a really big role in you knowing right away that it wasn't some dude out there just, with looking to help people out that might be stuck in the ditch or something in the snow.
It like I said, it's just circumstances. The time, 1 a.m., the conditions, at least 6 inches of snow, full moon, cloudless. If anybody was going to be out doing anything mischievous, they wouldn't have picked such a night to be out roaming or gallivanting, and especially somebody that size. There's too many coincidences for it to be somebody in that area.
So what did he say then once you related your experience? Did that make him feel better about what he saw and not understanding totally what he saw? Did it set his mind at ease at all? Or
he fought me on that tooth and nail for probably about an hour and a half. This was probably a 4-hour conversation I had with him. But it was probably about 2 hours into the conversation, I finally said, like, you know what? I can even tell you that the first one I seen was a male. And my uncle kind of stopped. He looked at me and he goes, wait, what? I said, when it was standing there and it finally stood up and it was facing me, I got a good look at the front, and let me tell you, it was definitely a male. You could see all the sexual organs, and they were right there for full observation.
Surgeons keep our hearts beating. They do the amazing, help save lives, and so can you. Your CSL plasma donation can help create 24 critical life-saving medicines that can give Grandpa the chance for his heart to swell when he meets his new grandson, or give a bride the chance for her heart to skip a beat on her wedding day. Every plasma donation helps more than you know. Do the amazing. Help save lives. Donate today at your local CSL Plasma Center and be rewarded for your generosity.
Hop on over to Meijer for a happy Easter. We're serving up low prices on Easter favorites, like Meijer Spiral Sliced Ham for just 89 cents per pound. Limit 1. Choose fresh sides, rolls, and desserts, and save on treats and toys. This week, earn 3,000 points for every $30 you spend on toys with M-Perks. Get the same low prices no matter how you shop, and get more for your money at Meijer. Exclusions apply. See all the deals in the Meijer app.
Need weekend plans to get spring ready? Make Lowe's your weekend destination this spring with Weekending at Lowe's. Stop by for free activities and workshops, including our upcoming Raised Garden Bed Workshop. This month, we're celebrating with fun events like Springfest Egg Venture, where you can enjoy Easter treats for the whole family. Visit Lowe's.com/events for this month's full lineup. Count on Lowe's for all of your home improvement needs. And now, activities in your community with Weekending at Lowe's.
I mean, I knew some guys in college that might be out running around naked like that, but I don't think most people would be out doing that in the woods. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's got to be. I just don't even know how incredible that would be to see that in that detail. You know, that has to be incredible. So did he really ever come around?
He actually did, and he had a couple weeks off. I want to say about 3 or 4 years ago, that he actually rented a cabin in the Allegheny National Forest, And he spent a week in the Allegheny National Forest doing his own kind of like poking and prodding in that area to see if he could have another encounter.
Really? Did anything happen, or did he?
No, it was quiet as a church.
Now, did you do any research in these areas to see what kind of other activity might have been reported before?
I started looking at the BFRO website. I actually filed the first and the second encounters with BFRO. The third one, I have not done so.
So before we get to the third one, then I want to ask, did you, because that first one is incredible. Did anybody come out and have you take them to that spot and have them do an investigation at all? Or,
it was actually Amy who got in touch with me when she was back with the BFRO.
Oh, okay. So that's how you got to know Amy then. Okay.
That's how I got to know Amy, when she took my first and second report.
Okay. That's all. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. That's, and no wonder she likes you as a eyewitness, because like I said, that first one I'm going to be talking about that one for a while. That's pretty incredible. So now you've seen two. How's the third encounter come about?
The third encounter would have been around September 12th of 2020. I had the ability to spend 9 days at the family cabin up there in Clearfield County. And my hunting partner and fishing partner at the time, my good friend Janet, we were always getting into adventures. You would find us sitting at the kitchen table bored one day and look at each other and go, okay, where are we going? What are we fishing for? What are we hunting for? And we'd just pack up the gear and go. So her and I decided that we wanted to chase the native brook trout in the area. And we decided that we were going to go do some off-roading that day as well. So we decided that we were going to combine the two, and we went on to Upper Three Runs Road in Pottersdale. It is roughly a 4-mile 4x4 trail that runs up the first basin, or up the first hollow on that mountain range. And it's a beautiful multi-spring fed bedrock creek that has some really nice native brook trout in. And the road is unless people have a camp on that road, most people stay out of it. It gets pretty hairy back in there. Road's only as wide as an F-150 pickup truck. So if you get two trucks back in there facing each other, one of you is backing up, and you're backing up a good ways till the road's big enough to fit two trucks by. And we went up the whole way up to the end of the road, turned around at the last camp on the road, and we started fishing the creek back. And as we were going down the creek fishing the small holes that we were finding, because there was real low water that time of the year, they didn't have much rain. And we find a spot, there was 5 or 6 holes lined up, and the way the truck was facing, it would have been facing east down the hollow, and the creek would have been on the north side of the truck, and a great big steep mountainside on the south side, probably about 300 foot to the top. We get back in there and we find that spot and we stop. And I had at the time my German Shepherd, Lucy, and my Golden Retriever, Ginger, in the truck with us as well. So I'd park in the shade, leave all the windows down so the dogs would stay nice and cool, and we'd hop out, fish 5 or 6 holes, hop back in the truck, keep going. We stopped, and instantly, without thinking, I hopped out of the truck. The moment my feet hit the ground, I just overpowering wet dog and human body odor. It was atrocious. It absolutely just assaulted the nostrils. So I stopped, I turn around, and I go to look at Janet, and my German Shepherd is standing from the back seat on the center console of my F-150, and every hair from in between her ears the whole way down to the tip of her tail along her back was just standing on it. And I'm like, I've never seen my dog react that way before. I look at her. Liz, you okay? And she's started to look up the hillside. And that's when I was like, wait a second. Human body odor, wet dog. This dog's freaked out. All the stories of Bigfoot and dog interactions. I went, there's a Bigfoot. And it's close. And that's what I said to Janet. I said, Janet, there's a Bigfoot close. And she's instantly out the passenger window, like scanning her hillside. And I turned around, put my back against my truck, against the driver door, and I pulled my 40 out of my holster that was on my side. I carry a full-size H&K VP 40 with 13 40-round Smith & Wesson. And I just put my back to the door and I started scanning the thicket down along the creek in front of me. Because I only had maybe 40, 50 yards of visibility on that side. I didn't want nothing rushing me out of the thicket without having any chance of getting reprisal. Because that's the only way I would kill one. Self-defense in defense of my family members. The only way I would kill one.
And so at that point, you think there may be one that may come at you because of the dog?
It was, yeah, my dog was absolutely freaked out. You could just see the expression, the hair raised up on her back. She wanted out of there, and she wanted nothing to do with the place we were at.
And I can't, and I try to, when I hear people describe the scent, the odor, you wonder just like how close does one of those have to be for you to smell that? Because I know you can smell stuff that smells that terrible from quite a distance, but still, it has to be reasonably close.
Well, I had the good fortune of a westerly wind. The time of day was bringing the thermal from the top of the mountain down into the lower part of the valley. So where that thing was positioned compared to the truck, it was just having its scent blown right down to me. I was directly downwind of it.
Now, did you get a chance to see? Did you get to see this one?
And this is where I made that disclaimer earlier. I don't know if it's coincidence. I don't know if it was telecommunication. I don't know what happened. The only thing I can do is describe what happened and let listeners make their own assumption. After about a minute of standing there scanning the surroundings, like Janet and I are both going, I don't see nothing. There's nothing here. And I closed my eyes, put the gun at my side, and mentally, in my own brain, I said, I will not screw with you if you don't screw with me. I just want to see you. Period. The moment the period hit the end of that sentence, a limb snapped on the passenger side of the truck on the south slope at about a 60-yard distance. And the reason I know that is because I took one step away from the truck, which put me at the very berm of the road. I turned around, and I caught this creature going from pine tree to pine tree. There was an oak tree, and then into the mountain laurel. And there was maybe 6 to 10 feet gap in between the first 2 pine trees, the second pine tree, and the oak tree, and then another 10 feet from the oak tree to the mountain laurel. So I got about 30 foot of visibility on this creature as it made its way from tree to tree to mountain laurel.
And what did you see?
This one here reminded me of an old crone, is the best way to put it. It was no more than 6.5 feet tall. It was hunched over. The shoulders were drooped forward. The arms were lazily at its side. The gait was nowhere near as confident as the first 2. It was more of a shuffle. The creature was silver in color instead of the black like the first one. And it was very greasy, very unkempt. it looked like a old decrepit homeless woman. Is best comparison I could make.
Did Janet get to see it or not?
Janet caught one glimpse of it at just as it hit the Mountain Laurel.
So she definitely saw that there was something up there, but didn't get as good a detail as
she was as quick to sight it as I was.
And I'm assuming, since Janet is your partner in crime there, she knows about your other, at this point, she knows about your other encounters.
I'm sorry, you're going to have to repeat that. Kids are coming in to say goodnight.
Oh, okay. I said, I'm assuming since Janet's your partner in crime there, that she knows about your other two encounters at this point when you guys are out there.
She did know my other two encounters. That was one of the few people that in my close circle that I opened up to about.
Okay. So was she somebody that was anxious to experience it too?
She was excited. She kept going, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. I can't believe that we just saw something like that. Like, I can't believe you just got your third.
So how did the dog calm down any once you had a visual and that creature seemingly was walking away?
The dog calmed down enough that it wasn't as sketched out, but the dog never left the on guard stage. She didn't fully calm down until we were honestly probably a half mile from the sighting location.
So, and maybe you said that, how close then was this to your cabin?
This would be within 3 or 4 miles.
Okay.
First encounter.
So, the whole time you're up at I'm assuming you spent a lot of time in the woods around your cabin. Have you ever smelled anything like that before?
I've never smelled anything like that before. I've been in close proximity to bear. They have a somewhat wet dog smell, but this was distinct human body odor with wet dog.
Gosh, that just sounds awful. I got to be totally honest. That smell just sounds so awful. I can't. I can see how people that encounter that smell, it never leaves them. I mean, everybody has that smell or that experience with like a food or something that has turned rotten food or whatever has turned their stomach, and you never can forget that smell. I can't even imagine what that combination is like. I'm sure you can conjure it up anytime you want.
The closest I can come would be skunk cabbie. I don't know if you've ever seen or dealt with skunk cabbie.
No, I have not.
It's a plant that grows in very wet land conditions here in Pennsylvania. And if it is left alone untouched, it just looks like a plant. Walk through it and break the leaves off of it, and it smells like a wet skunk.
Oh, yeah. Skunks are awesome. I mean, they're... Wow. So, okay, so you have your third encounter. Then what? I mean, are you satisfied? Do you want to see more? It doesn't sound to me like you're going out and trying to go Bigfooting to me. Is that the case, or am I totally off on that?
Like I told you and Amy in our conversation earlier, I'm just a hick from the sticks that's in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, so you're not you're not out there trying to research and find and have more sightings. You're just which may be the reason you have sightings.
Well, the first one I put to, it was deer season. I had 2 doe in front of me. And who knows, maybe that thing was watching those deer from the top of the hill, thinking, maybe it could catch itself dinner for tonight. Or maybe it was hopeful, if it didn't know I was there, thinking that maybe I would shoot one of those deer and it could scavenge the gut pile for free whenever I leave.
Yeah, true. Or just reach out and snag it, you know.
Like I said, it was looking to catch itself its own dinner that night, or it was looking to catch a free dinner after I was done with the dirty one. But to be honest with you, I don't think it realized I was there until we started looking at each other. I honestly think we both caught each other by complete surprise.
So what, I mean, do you, I don't even know, like, do you consider yourself lucky or privileged, or has this changed the way you do anything?
The only thing that's changed is I just make sure that I am well armed when I am in the woods.
So you don't really have a sense of fear of being out there, other than if you know, I mean, it doesn't scare you to be out in the woods. Let's just put it that way. You feel like you're armed enough that you can take care of yourself.
Strong. There are certain times, like waiting for the sun to come up, because I'm usually in the woods an hour and a half before daylight. I want the other hunters walking into the woods pushing the deer to me, because I'm already a mile and a half back waiting on the deer to come in. So while I'm sitting there in complete darkness waiting for the sun to come up, there are certain times like I get a little sketched out when something goes bump in the night, and I'm not quite sure what that sound is or what made the sound. But like you just said, I'm usually well armed enough that I can handle whatever business comes my way.
Okay. I mean, I think it's a testament to how tough you really are that you have no problem going back out into the woods. I'm not sure a lot of people after the third sighting would be like, I'm just going to go out and sit in the woods in the dark. You know, I don't know. Either you're crazy or you're just super tough. So you can claim either one.
You asked me how I feel about it. I feel blessed because I've had two very, I guess you'd say, platonic encounters where I didn't have one yelling at and screaming at me and bluff charging. I haven't had an aggressive encounter. All I've had was one real standoff at 140 yards where the distance, I think, allowed me and the creature some form of safety that allowed us to stand there for so long. I do feel privileged because I am one of the few, couple thousand, 10,000 maybe, that has actually had eyewitness sightings and multiple eyewitness sightings.
Yeah, there's not many that have had three. I will say that I've run across, you know.
And
so
I have no doubt that I will have more encounters in the future. And it's simply because I haven't changed my way of living. And that's because of the encounters I've had. I haven't had an aggressive one yet. Maybe if I do have an aggressive one, I might change my tone a little bit. But they haven't bothered me, and I haven't bothered them, and I like to leave it that way.
So you have no regrets then from that first experience, not being the guy who takes the shot that may be able to bring one in for people to prove the existence of the creature then?
I don't have any regrets of not pulling the trigger. Yes, the money would be nice, the fame and notoriety, that's the downfall. You're not the person that shot or possibly shot a hominid. I don't want to take the backlash that comes with that either.
Yeah, because, I mean, let's be honest, for every person that would be like, hey, yeah, you should do it, there's probably 20 that say, no, you shouldn't. You know? I don't really think there's a whole lot of people that aren't maybe hunters or have had bad experiences that would be on the side of let's just shoot one to shoot one, no matter what. I mean, I don't know. I kind of think so what if we don't get a body to bring in? I feel like the people that have these experiences, like you and like a lot of people we talk to, I mean, to me, that's great enough evidence, firsthand experience, firsthand accounts, especially from hunters. You know what you're seeing out there, and you got a really, really good look. And the other thing I just want to touch on quick before we jump off is, so do you think in that third encounter that you were able to communicate with that creature or not?
And that's where I'm going to say, I don't know. Was it absolute coincidence that when I put the period on that sentence in my mind, that thing decided, like the first one, okay, these people are not going to screw with me, I'm out of here? Or did something sixth sense, telecommunications happen? I don't know. I'm not a scientist, and I can't experiment to find out. So I will leave that open to interpretation.
Well, it's probably how it should be, because like you said, whether it's just luck or coincidence, I mean, it's kind of a cool experience to have been witness to, for sure. So, but I'll tell you what, Casey, Amy Boo wasn't lying. She doesn't lie to me. So I got to thank Amy Boo for connecting us, because these were great experiences, and I'm thankful that you chose to come on and share them with everybody. And like I said, I hope that by you sharing these experiences, that other people may have had similar experiences that have not come forward. Maybe it gives them some peace of mind to let them know that they're not alone out there.
And that's honestly why I started doing this stuff. When Amy comes to me and says, "Hey, I got this great podcast, or I got this great audience at a event, I want you to come speak," I usually don't tell her no.
Look, it's between me and you, since nobody's listening. The rule of thumb is just don't tell any woman no, and you're always going to be you're always going to err on the right side. So, but no, I appreciate it, and I hope there's some listeners out there that have gotten some comfort from hearing about your experiences, because I mean, they're amazing. They're amazing. So I appreciate you coming on and spending some time sharing them with us.
Not a problem, Shane. I greatly appreciate the time to speak about them.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.
Surgeons keep our hearts beating. They do the amazing, help save lives, and so can you. Your CSL plasma donation can help create 24 critical life-saving medicines that can give Grandpa the chance for his heart to swell when he meets his new grandson, or give a bride the chance for her heart to skip a beat on her wedding day. Every plasma donation helps more than you know. Do the amazing. Help save lives. Donate today at your local CSL Plasma Center and be rewarded for your generosity.
The Venture X card from Capital One gives you premium travel benefits, perfect for seeing Taylor Swift The Eras Tour. Presented by Capital One. Ooh, I do love her. Earn 5 times miles on flights and 10 times miles on hotels through Capital One Travel.
Enjoy your stay in Suite 13.
Whoa, 13? That's Taylor's lucky number. The Venture X card from Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.